I will call this meeting, I will call to order the December 12th, 2024 meeting of the Santa Barbara Local Agency Information Commission. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Freeman,
Here.
Commissioner Guyer,
Here.
Commissioner Hartman, Commissioner Kiriakou,
Here.
Commissioner Magana,
Here.
Commissioner Nelson,
Here.
Commissioner Osborne,
Here.
Commissioner Patino, Commissioner Richardson,
Here.
Commissioner Stark,
Here.
Commissioner Williams. Let the record reflect that Commissioners Hartman, Patino, and Williams are absent.
Can you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item of business is approval of minutes from the November 7th, 2024 meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Osborne moves.
Motion by Osborne, second by Kiriakou. Is there any public comment on this?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Okay, hearing none, moving on to a roll call vote.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Kiriakou,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Osborne,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Chair Freeman.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Moving on to public comment. Now is the time for members of the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on items not on the agenda?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak under general public comment.
Thank you. This concludes public comment. Moving on to the approval of the consent calendar. I'm under the impression that we're going to be pulling item 2.
Yes, Chair. Staff would like to pull item 2.
Are there any other items that commissioners would like to pull?
I'll move for approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion on the balance of the consent agenda from Guyer, second by Stark. Is there any public comment, though, on the consent calendar?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we have no requests on this item.
Okay, moving on to a roll call vote.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Kiriakou,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Osborne,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Chair Freeman.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Item consent 2.
Yes, Chair. Staff has requested pulling this item. It has to do with our 2025 LAFCO schedule calendar. We wanted to make a notated change for our May meeting. In May, we were scheduled to be in Santa Barbara on the 1st. We want to change the location and the date for that time. We want to move the location to here in Santa Maria for the following week on May 8th. The reason being, staff has a LAFCO workshop on the 1st, so we will be out of town. So we want to move it to the 8th and the location to be in Santa Maria, with no remote location for Santa Barbara for that particular meeting. The meeting facility space is not available for us on that day. So,
Okay. Sounds like we don't have much of a choice then anyway. Is there any questions or comments from the commission?
So it was a May meeting?
May.
May. We would like that be May 8th in Santa Maria with no remote location.
Thank you.
Was all, yeah, changing the date and the location.
Yeah,
okay.
and
All right,
location.
All right. Okay, is there any public comment on this?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Okay, entertain a motion.
I'll move it. Second it.
Motion by Guyer, second by Stark. Moving on to a roll call vote.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Kiriakou,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Osborne,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Chair Freeman.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, next item is out-of-agency service agreement, item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, out-of-agency service agreement item number 1 is to consider recommendations regarding LAFCO application file number 24-04 for an out-of-agency service agreement for the city of Santa Maria to provide water service to Santa Maria Bonita Elementary School site located at 2715 West Main Street, Santa Maria, in unincorporated area of Santa Barbara County, west of the city of Santa Maria, California 93458, APN 113-050-007.
Not, okay. All right, executive officer to report. I was
Okay.
waiting for the remaining clause. Maybe I was just misreading it. Okay.
No problem. We do have a PowerPoint for this. If we can get that up on the overhead. Okay, so this is the Bonita School site out-of-agency service agreement between the school and the city of Santa Maria for water service. The applicant in this case is the city of Santa Maria. They took a action at their city council to adopt a resolution to initiate the out-of-agency service agreement, and the agreement is attached as part of this package along with their resolution. The site is approximately 5 acres, school site located at 2715 West Main Street. The purpose is to provide the elementary school domestic water connection to the city through a private lateral. So the existing water well has been documented and tested to have high nitrate levels and has exceeded the state mandates. Both the state and local county environmental health services have placed their water use in a non-compliant state. So we are acting on the special clause within the out-of-agency service agreement under the health and safety provision that allows service to be provided outside of a jurisdictional sphere of influence and service area. Here's a location of the school, approximately just over 2 miles away outside of the city to the west. Here's a closer detail of the school site itself. And so the connection would tie into the city's wastewater treatment plant site. It would traverse along Black Road and then go west along Main Street to provide the lateral connection to the school site. This is the exhibit map that we will record as part of the out-of-agency service agreement showing the location of the 5 acres. So as I indicated, the proposal is outside of the city's sphere of influence. That was last updated in 2016 by the commission. Both the school and the city has agreed to the water service connection and the parameters and details of which the connection would be made and the cost associated with that. The city's existing water main essentially would run along Black Road, as we saw on the exhibit map, and then westerly along Main Street. That's roughly close to 2 miles away at 8,100 feet away from the city's wastewater treatment plant. They have provided documentation as part of their application of the threat, health, and safety to the public and the affected users of the school site. And so under the clause, we will consider that out-of-agency service agreement. Land use is not expected to change, still remain to be a school, still approximately 600 students and faculty that use the school site. No change in land use as part of this proposal as well. It's still designated in the county as educational facility and zoned Ag 240. The plan for service submitted by both the school representatives and the city indicate that there's adequate service for the city to provide this water service. That's all found in attachment C and attachment E. the slide indicates a little bit more detail about what would consist of that water line. So the intersections that it traverses, and essentially the opportunity to provide enough water to get fire suppression flow and irrigation of the remainder of this site itself, and facilitate the facility and their faucets and sinks and things of that nature for the users of the school site. The city and the landowner also provided documentation for that health and safety. That's all contained within their mitigated negative declaration as well. So the school was the lead agency in that and adopted the mitigated dec. The city also considered that. And so now, under LAFCO's action, it's LAFCO's turn to evaluate that same document and make sure it suffices for our purposes to allow the out-of-agency service agreement. And the main reason that we look at it for is whether or not there's growth-inducing impacts associated with a new water line that would be moving farther away from the city at roughly 2 miles or so. In this case, we're looking at a private line that's roughly 2 inches in diameter for the site. It would be a private extension that traverses that. The school site would fund all of the construction of this new water line and tank associated with their needs. And so other users wouldn't have access to that or be privy to tap into the same water line and source as a receiver. So we feel pretty comfortable that it's solely for the purpose of the school site, for the intended purpose of the school to continue its operations. And so the commission can find that the adequate evaluation of the environmental document will suffice for our needs. With an out-of-agency service agreement, the commission does have a policy that the property owner and the city agree to consent to a future annexation at some point, should the need arise and be appropriate for annexation. And so that we've included that as part of an attachment here, and they are looking to sign that agreement for some future annexation if the need arises. So the conclusion here is that the application is in response to this impending threat in health and safety, that the school site has lack water for the remainder of this school year and have been using bottled water to supply the students and the faculty, and that the existing water main that would traverse roughly 1.7 miles would be a private line only for the school site, and that under the provisions of the agreement, we can find under subsection 3 under 56133 that there is a health and safety risk, and that we can authorize an out-of-agency service agreement. So with that, staff would conclude our report and be here available if there are any questions specific about this project.
Any questions or comments from the commission? Looks like Stark.
I have a question. Is my understanding correct that this property is currently outside the sphere of influence, but the annexation petition, when it occurs, would be accompanied by a sphere of influence expansion? Is that correct?
That's correct. So this is currently outside of the sphere. If an annexation were to come forward, we would concurrently amend the sphere and annex. And as we know, annexation into cities require contiguous property. So there's an interim land in between this site and the city would also have to be annexed as part of that proposal. So that would be a future decision possibly to be made. In the interim, they would be allowed under the out-of-agency service agreement to continue to receive water from the city.
There's no specified time trigger for them to do it. It's just when it's appropriate. Is that correct?
To annex is when it would be appropriate and that they wouldn't protest under that provision. That's what the agreement says.
Any other questions or comments, Commission?
Some questions in North
Anything-
or South County?
Yeah. Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Freeman. Do we have anybody here from the city or the district that can
answer some questions?
We do here in North County.
Okay.
Maybe first, can you introduce yourself so we can have the context for this?
Yeah, my name is Shad Springer. I'm the Director of Utilities for the City of Santa Maria.
Thank you. So Commissioner Nelson, questions?
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Springer, thank you for being here. So I understand that there's a population of about 600 kids that attend this school. How many of them live within 3 miles of this campus? Do you guys have any idea of what are within the, like, what, you know, what would be kind of historically the neighborhood?
No, I'm sorry, Commissioner Nelson, I do not know that answer. The City of Santa Maria was approached by the school district. They had issues with the on-site well, has been described here, with respect to it meeting drinking water standards, and they looked at several options for providing potable water to the site, seems how it is a non-community, non-transient water system. So they had a responsibility to provide potable water. The option that the school district chose to go with was to pursue water supply from the city. The city worked with them on how that connection might be, but with respect to information regarding the students at the school, I don't have that information.
Okay. Going to the project itself, I was looking through some of the project cost estimates. Do we have a number? I mean, there seems like there was a bunch of different scenarios on how to get this accomplished. Do you know where they settled?
The project that they've requested the city to support is essentially a 2-inch connection to the city's main at the city limits on Black Road. From there, they would have a backflow or a check device, and it would be a private, and by private I mean owned by the school district, connection that would then go northerly along Black Road and then westerly along Main Street. That line would be owned and operated by the school district. Part of the city's requirements for connection is that other customers cannot connect onto that line, as Mr. Prater described during the description.
So to go ahead and put that in, they're going to need some additional easements across county right-of-way and some of their neighbors. Is that what I'm understanding?
That is correct. I do know that the engineering report and the information they were looking at, they would need encroachment permits from the county for work that they would need to do in county roadway, as well as encroachment permits from Caltrans for the work along Main Street or State Highway 166.
Okay. And then, let's see, I think as far as the water's concerned, are they purchasing additional water from the city of Santa Maria as part of this?
They would be a city customer in this case, correct?
I guess my question is about kind of the, under the stipulated agreement about how when typically the city attaches to something else that is that new water? Because they're obviously going to be, they're going to be receiving city water, which a new customer providing additional water into your system. Where's that coming from? And are they compensating the city for that?
The discussions we've had with the school district is essentially that they'll be paying the connection fees to the city and then the monthly water rates.
Okay, so they're not going to.
The school site, go ahead.
Yeah, so they're not going to
Sorry.
pay, and I apologize for everybody for the questions. I don't mean to make this meeting any longer than it has to be, but I just was curious. Like, so other developments that attach to the city purchase additional water from the city. This one is not going to do that?
The site, that is not the discussions we've had with the school district. The site is currently served by a well. That provides the equivalent water, so they will quit providing potable service from the well, and it would be the equivalent amount of water coming from the city.
Okay, I just wasn't aware that the stipulated agreement allowed for that. It's good to know. So I guess the other question that I had here, no, I think that's it at this point. My questions for the city. Thank you.
I have one or two as well. There wasn't a lot in the presentation about the threat. Can we talk a little bit about what the threat is? This is a matter of public health and safety as described in the presentation. In the report, it talks about nitrate levels. Can we just get a little, like the 1-minute version of why nitrate levels above MCL is a bad thing?
Is that something that, I mean, are you prepared to answer that question?
I could, yes.
Okay.
The drinking water standard for nitrate and MCL for the maximum contaminant level is that nitrate in drinking water is a hazard to everyone, particularly to young people and the elderly. The nitrogen preferentially bonds with essentially the iron in your blood, so it leads to the lack of oxygen in the supply. Some terms they've used for this is like blue baby syndrome and things of that nature when this first came up. So having excessive nitrate in the drinking water inhibits the body's ability to take up oxygen.
Okay, so having kindergartners in the area would be a really bad thing coming into contact with this water. Thank you, that answers that question. I guess the other question I have is, at the end of the day, this is a pretty significant expansion for the city. It's moving out towards Guadalupe here through this action if we go forward. Do we know anything about the city of Santa Maria's ability to service this area in terms of safe routes to school, bike transportation, bus transportation? What municipal services will exist to support this being in the city of Santa Maria? I recognize it's an existing facility and everything, but I'd like to have a better understanding of how the city of Santa Maria is going to stand behind this school after it becomes part of the city of Santa Maria.
Sure, I would like to state that the school district approached the city for water service. Importantly, in the discussion, the 2-inch line that is intended to provide the school is a line owned by the school district. It won't be the city's. So the city would also not be able to use that line to provide services to other properties along the way. And as noted by Mr. Prater, the city is not pursuing a change in its sphere or annexation to this area.
Okay.
So this is not a situation where the city intends to provide services in that way. As a water supplier that has drinking water that meets all of the drinking water standards, we were approached by the school district to provide that supply to address their public safety concern at the school site.
Okay, so just getting it on the record. So this is just water only. Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Coming back, we've got Commissioner Stark.
I have one, I think, fairly simple question. I think it's for our council. Can you describe the CEQA finding that we're required to make? Are we the responsible agency here?
Commissioner Stark, through the chair, are you asking, are you the lead agency or a responsible agency?
That's one of the things that I'm asking, yes.
And I believe in these circumstances, we are the responsible agency.
Thanks. And what is do we have to make a specific finding with respect to the lack of growth-inducing impact of this?
Chair, through Commissioner Stark, through the chair. So there's no specific finding that we have to make. As a responsible agency, we are determining that the CEQA analysis prepared by the school is adequate for our action.
For our purposes, and our purposes, if I understand correctly, are essentially limited to finding that there's an existing health and safety issue that requires the approval or allows the approval of the out-of-agency service agreement. Is that basically it?
Along with the authorization to allow a private connection and water service from the city, that would not be growth-inducing. So those are the decisions that we're making sure that the analysis covers.
Thank you.
I've got one last question, or I've got maybe something in deliberations when we get to that.
Okay. Maybe, is there any public comment?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Okay. Coming back to deliberation, Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Freeman. And just for the record, Director Williams is now present as well. When this came up last time, I asked a question of Director Prather about would it be possible that we might potentially put a time frame on this out-of-area service agreement, whether that's some condition we could potentially put on this project. And that's something I still support, and I would actually ask my former commissioners to consider. Bonita School is 3.5 miles from the nearest residence in the city of Santa Maria. And it's been intensified as a school site. Unfortunately, it's out in agricultural zoning. And if you know anything about Western Santa Maria Valley, it's quite industrial. And it's not someplace that we typically would put a school if we were to start over today. It's someplace that I've been long advocating for the school district to consider to moving this school back into town. They literally bus all the students to the site along a very busy state highway, Highway 166. And I understand and I concur that there is an immediate health and safety need to address this issue for at least the short and medium term. And so I do support moving forward with this point. That area has some natural high nitrate levels even before the agriculture in that area, but there does have additional agriculture as well as we had a strong and significant amount of dairies in the Santa Maria Valley that were just adjacent to this school site prior to its development. It was originally done as a country school site that has now been intensified by the school district. And I'm really concerned that if we, and I don't think it's the right spot for a school. It's something that school district has not made any serious efforts on bringing this school back into town, and they've kind of used this as an overflow site. And I don't think that's really good planning, and it's not really good, obviously, on a health and safety side. So I like LAFCO, if my colleagues would concur, to maybe put a 10-year time frame on this, and at that point, if the district would like to come back to LAFCO and make a case for why it still needs to be out there, then we can talk about this in a decade from now with future commissioners. But I think making this a permanent out-of-area service agreement would really be the wrong message to the school district, would potentially be growth-inducing, would further facilitate the intensification and put additional students on the site as the school district has done. And I think that's just really bad news and something we shouldn't support on a permanent basis. On temporary basis, totally understand the need and the concern and support it. So when we get a chance to make a motion, if there is support among my colleagues, and I don't know how to do this, Mr. Prather, but if we could put that time frame on it, I'd like to see that done.
Okay. Stark seems to have some commentary. Your mic was on, maybe not.
Oh, my mic was on. I was going to ask Mr. Prater if he's in agreement with the motion from Commissioner Nelson.
Okay, Commissioner Stark through the chair. So I was conversing here privately with legal counsel that as written and as recommended, there is no time limit proposed. We have certainly the commission has the authority to allow terms and conditions, and you can put a specified time frame on an out-of-agency service agreement. Our local history, we have not done that for any of our out-of-agency service agreements. It's sort of just been issued, and then in perpetuity, it's allowed to have that connection up until annexation potentially might occur. So that's with that caveat. However, I understand Commissioner Nelson's point here, and if the rest of the commission is in agreement for that, my recommendation would be make that part of a motion, but allow staff to return with a formal resolution that stipulates the term and condition and the number of years that the commission would want to place on this particular out-of-agency service agreement. And we would return at our January meeting on a consent item authorizing that final resolution. So you'd have that informally in front of you, because right now it's not stipulated through a resolution. And I would want to make that a formal resolution with terms and conditions so that it's spelled out plainly.
In light of some of the revelations from Commissioner Nelson, I have a question about, so when we make an out-of-area service agreement, the out-of-area service agreement targets a parcel, not like a user. So if the school actually is under a lot of pressure to move and the school does decide to move and vacate that piece of property, would that then mean that we've essentially provided a water line out into the middle of nowhere? And then would that affect our ability to make this declaration of the growth inducement?
Chair, the answer to that is the commission has the authority to withdraw any out-of-agency service agreement it has authorized in the past. So if the school site decides to move, we can bring back an item to basically withdraw that approval. And that site would no longer have the authority to have water. There would be a pipeline connected. We would ask the city to cap that line, and there would just be a line in the ground for some maybe future use, but it would not actually be authorized at that point to connect to the city as a customer.
Thank you. Looks like a Geyer.
So your suggestion was to approve it but bring it back in January on the consent agenda. Wouldn't it be a little better to continue the item and have it an actual agenda item so that there could be further discussion if there was anything concerning in the resolution?
Yeah, so Commissioner Geyer, through the chair, the suggestion that I made was if the commission felt comfortable that they wanted to add a term and condition stipulating a set of years for this particular agreement, then I'm okay with that if that's what the majority of the commissioners want. I would just want to formalize that through a resolution. And I don't have that resolution in front of you today, so I would ask that you make your decision, and then we would bring back the proper resolution that formulates that decision.
Yeah, and I follow all of that. All I'm uncomfortable. I'm comfortable with making the change, but uncomfortable with putting it on the consent agenda. When it comes back, it would be on the action agenda.
So we can put it on as a regular board item.
Chair Freeman, I just wanted, Chair Freeman, if I...
Nelson, yes.
Yeah, I apologize for interrupting. I think I heard 7 years. I meant to say 10 years. If I misspoke, I wanted to correct that. Maybe it was a set of years. Maybe I misheard. But I was thinking 10 years. I wanted to make it long enough that it was worth the capital investment necessary for the school to move forward.
Okay. Are you leaning forward, Stark?
No,
you weren't. Okay.
I could make a motion, I suppose, and move this forward. Is that okay?
Is there, that makes sense to me.
Okay. I will move, can we do conceptual approvals? I move that we conceptually approve the out-of-agency service agreement as presented with the addition of the conditions suggested by our executive officer plus the 10-year cap on the life of the out-of-agency service agreement, and that it return to the commission in January for a formal adoption of a resolution on our business agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion by Stark, second by Geyer. Can we move on to a roll call vote?
Commissioner
Chair.
Geyer?
No,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I just want to let you know I'm not going to vote so that
We both can.
so that Bob can. Oh, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can both vote. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Director Williams.
All right, great.
Commissioner Geyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Kiriako?
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson?
Aye.
Commissioner Osborne?
Aye.
Commissioner Stark?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Chair Freeman?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, moving on to changes of organization, item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, changes of organization item number 1 is to consider recommendations regarding LAFCO file number 24-06 and 24-07 for the 840 Puente Drive out-of-agency service agreement, sphere of influence amendment, and annexation to the Glida Sanitary District.
Thank you. Executive Officer's report.
Okay, Chair, we will have our analyst, Natasha, present this item to the commission.
Perfect.
And Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we have before you today the 840 Puente Drive out of agency service agreement, SOI, and annexation to the Goleta Sanitary District. This application was brought by the landowner and by petition, and the parcel is located at 840 Puente Drive and is approximately 0.69 acres. And the purpose is to annex into the Goleta Sanitary District for sewer service. The proposed area is outside of the district's sphere of influence, which was last updated in 2023. And as you can see here, this is the vicinity map showing the Goleta Sanitary District and the proposed property there. This is a closer look at the Goleta Sanitary District boundary with the proposed annexation location. The land use is residential, and there are no changes in land use that will be facilitated by the proposed boundary change. And the land use designation and zoning is residential in the county as residential res 1.0. The property is currently served by a failing septic system, and the applicants have been informed that the septic system for the property is failing and in need of replacement. The County of Santa Barbara Environmental Health Services is aware of the condition and does support connection to the district, and there is available an existing district sewer facilities immediately in front of the property on Puente Drive. The applicant is requesting the connection to best mitigate the current circumstance. Annexation of the property into the district boundary is possible, and the consideration is made part of this application. If approved, the annexation process would still take some time. Therefore, an interim connection under an out-of-agency service agreement would allow for the immediate connection. The district plans for services outline the adequate services, facilities, and improvements and address the provision of governmental services and financing improvements. The area is outside of the district's sphere of influence, which was last updated in 2023. The spheres would be amended to include this area. The present and planned land uses are consistent with the county's Eastern Goleta Valley Community Plan. And present and probable need for services consists of the new sewer connection for single-family residents, sewer service being provided by a private sewer line. Fire is already provided by Santa Barbara County Fire, and water is currently provided by Goleta Water. The nearest sewer connection would be located adjacent to the property on Puente Drive, and the sanitary district has stated it does have adequate capacity to provide services to the parcel. The Goleta Valley provides places for shopping and service for people living in the area, and this area is not qualified as a disadvantaged unincorporated community. The proposal is categorically exempt pursuant to Public Resources Code Section 21000, Section 15319B, Class 19, and annexation of individual small parcels for facilities exempted by Section 15303. The parcel is uninhabited with less than 12 voters, and the district has consented to waiving conducting authority proceedings, and the property owners have also consented to the annexation. Therefore, it can proceed without notice, hearing, and election. In conclusion, the site is located in an area that allows the district to best provide service in the future, and the proposed sphere of influence revision and annexation represent a reasonable and logical extension of service. And staff's recommendation is to approve the proposal and resolution as follows.
Moving on to questions or comments from the commission. Note that if required, we have someone from the city of Goleta on Zoom. Commissioner Guyer.
I just want to be clear. Is the system been cited by county health as failed, or it's just failing?
It's just acknowledged that it's failing. So it's not a health and safety determination by environmental health today.
Any other comments from the commission, maybe in Santa Barbara? Hearing none, moving on to public comment.
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Moving back to the commission. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move approval of the
Director Osborne.
proposal and resolution.
And I'll second.
Motion by Kyriakou, second by Osborne. Moving on to a roll call vote.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Kyriakou,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Osborne,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Chair Freeman.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, moving on to business item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, business item number 1 is to consider the adoption of a service and sphere of influence review for the 18 agencies that provide park and recreation, open space, library, and facility rental services in Santa Barbara County.
Executive Officer's report.
Okay. All right. Well, the good news is we made it. This is the final hearing to consider the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, Library, and Facility Rental Municipal Service Review and Sphere update for those 18 agencies that we've been studying and talking about over the past year. So with that, just to remind the commission and the public, so we embarked on this back in February of 2024, where we started to gather the information, solicit input from the agencies about various documents to generate an admin report. That admin report was presented to the individual staff members of those agencies to provide comment and feedback. They provided that comment and feedback, and then we ultimately released a public review draft back in November. That draft has been out for a 30-day public comment period. We received some additional comments, likely from some of those staff members as well, but anybody else that may have looked at the document and found notational error, corrections to be made. And we presented those in this packet for the commission to consider today. Ultimately ended up with 6 additional edits as part of an attachment table. And then we posted a 21-day notice that the commission was going to take action on this service review and ultimately adopt spheres of influences for 8 of those agencies. And so that's what I mean by we finally made it to this point in this hearing. And so with that, we have an overhead shot of the countywide service review that we considered. This is number 4 now that we've taken under review. The list of special districts and the cities that are included under this review, and a map exhibit kind of showing and highlighting where they lie within the county, overall county boundary. So some of the key determinations that did come out of this study is that all 6 of the independent special districts included here, the RCD, the Rec and Park districts, the Embarcadero Municipal Improvement District, the Los Alamos CSD, and Isla Vista CSD, they all have spheres of influences that essentially match their district boundary. So their coterminous with their service boundary matches their sphere of influence boundary. 3 of the county service areas, that would be CSA 3, 4, and 11, they also have spheres of influence that match their service boundary. County Service Area 5, it has a sphere of influence that is larger than its service boundary by 3,616 acres beyond the area it serves. So there's potential growth in service that's anticipated for that district, and that's why its boundary is much larger. 5 of the cities that were studied have spheres of influence that extend beyond their service boundary. That includes Carpinteria, Lompoc, Santa Barbara, Santa Maria, and Solvang. the city of Buellton, Goleta, and Guadalupe. They have coterminous spheres of influence. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're recommending a sphere of influence to basically remain the same for all of these 8 boundaries. Many of them are coterminous. They're going to stay the same. You've got CSA 5 that's larger. It's going to stay the same. We're not suggesting any changes. We think they well define the ultimate service boundary for them. Remember, we have one more service review to write. That covers sort of miscellaneous services. Those will include all 8 cities, at which time, at the conclusion of that, we will then contemplate what we are going to do ultimately with the city's spheres of influence. So none of the cities are being considered to have any changes at this point, although they're throughout the process. We are doing study areas within these cities, and we are making recommendations about whether their boundary should expand or not. And then when we get to 2026, we'll have a resolution in front of the commission for each of the cities that ultimately defines where their appropriate sphere should reside. So we've held regular agendized meetings for commission to be updated on this particular service review and the areas that we were studying. We've notified the interested parties. We've advertised it in the paper. To have any comment about the document itself, we've hosted it on our webpage. We've had a community survey in which we unfortunately didn't have as big of a turnout as we've seen in some of the prior service reviews, but nonetheless, we did have that out there for the public to comment on. And then we ultimately outreached to all 18 agencies, including the county and each of the districts itself and the cities. So at the conclusion of that, we've included attachment D that provides the 6 additional comments of proposed changes. We received all those and accept all those and feel they're adequate changes to be made and recommend that we accept all of those changes. So at the end of the day, we obviously like to thank everybody that gets involved in these service reviews, that provides their staff time to review the documents, to provide your local staff here at LAFCO all of the resources that we need to study and ultimately put these sort of service review plans together. And that includes the public as well, as they're participating throughout the process and have an opportunity to speak here at public comment period to talk about their view of the service that's being evaluated and whether it's an adequate service being provided by those agencies. And so at the conclusion of that, the recommendation is ultimately to take additional public comment if there is any, ask any questions from the commission, approve the CEQA document. In this case, it's determined to be an exemption as well, since no boundaries are really changing and no significant areas being included. And then that you approve the sphere update for those 8 agencies and ultimately the service review for all 18. So that concludes staff's presentation for this item.
Moving on to questions and comments from the commission. Any in Santa Barbara?
Yeah, I've got a question for Mr. Prather. So when a city sphere of influence and one of these other service area sphere of influences, they seem to sometimes overlap. Is that a common thing? And how does that exactly work? So the city's sphere of influence does not include those services in that sphere?
In Santa Barbara County, it's not uncommon to have a city service area and sphere overlap a special districts, particularly water and sewer in nature. That is something that is found fairly common in this county.
Okay, but we're also talking about these now. This is for park services, right, and rentals and so.
Yeah, specifically, that's what we're kind of studying in this service review.
Right.
As to whether or not the city ultimately provides that type of service in that sphere boundary ultimately determines whether or not they're going to annex the property. And as we indicated, it's sort of the tail end under the other factor that the commission considers. for parks, recreation, library services, those are types of services that are a little less innocuous in that they're not the primary reason why a city would annex into their territory. It would largely be because of water, sewer, police, and fire service. That would be a predominant need for an annexation. That's not to say that if a city decided it wanted additional park space and it was outside of their city limits, that they could amend their sphere and annex that because they wanted to expand their park operations or provide their residents more park opportunities. So that is a legitimate reason to expand a sphere or annex territory for a very specific use. But by and large, these types of services would not rise to a significant level that we would take them in and on themselves, new territory to be added if a specific site like that wasn't part of that annexation. So in other words, if a city wanted to provide service to a particular area that included water, sewer, police, and fire, or didn't include those services and only wanted to include it for parks and recs, we would take a closer look as to why that service would be added and why that sphere would be amended or annexation would be authorized because it's not including the more predominant level of services that typically come with a city structure.
So when a city does an annexation, there would essentially be a de-annexation of the previous CSD or service area when it comes to park and recreational services?
Potentially, it could. So that's what we call reorganization, where
Okay.
more than one action occurs, where a city is annexing territory and we are detaching territory from another district.
Gotcha.
That's called a reorganization. So that often happens when areas are added to a city. But it's not uncommon for particularly CSA 5 to overlap the city of Santa Maria in some sense, and there's sort of dual services that can be provided. That's not necessarily uncommon in some circumstances.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted, for the benefit of the entire commission, I know there was an issue about CSA 5 and extending beyond significantly amount of acres beyond its actual service area. That is a little bit of a remnants of the Orchid Community Plan for areas that are undeveloped, which is a significant areas in the Orchid Community Plan that are still undeveloped. And I think that represents the area of sphere that's not necessarily currently in the CSA, but it is part of their sphere of influence. And there's also, they create connectivity in the CSA 5 with Tanglewood. And so that needed some continuity, and that's why it grabbed a lot of acreage. And so I just wanted to explain why that's different than all the other ones in there for the rest of the commission. Thank you, guys.
Is there any other comment in Santa Barbara? Hearing none, is there any public comment?
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Okay, moving back to the commission. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll attempt a motion. I guess a motion to adopt the service and sphere of influence reviews for the 18 agencies with the findings A, B, C, D, and E.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Guyer.
This is basically the staff recommendations, is that correct?
Yeah.
Motion by Guyer, second by Stark for basically the staff recommendation. Moving on to a roll call.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Kiriako,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Osborne,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Chair Freeman.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Congratulations on that. Quick check on something. My script has a business item 2, but I don't think I see one on the agenda. Is that, there's not? Okay. So moving on to closed session. Madam Clerk, please read that item into the...
Addendum item.
Yeah, there is an addendum.
There is an- oh, there
there
was-
is an addendum item, business item 2.
You were nodding yes on the...
Sorry about
I was
that.
taking it to the wrong direction. Okay. Moving on to business item number 2. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
One second. Chair Freeman and members of the commission, business item number 2 is to consider execution of a contract with Kelsey Maloney Consulting to provide technical support in preparing sustainable agricultural lands conservation planning grant pre-proposal in an amount not to exceed $2,700.
Okay. Executive Officer report.
Thank you, Chair and Commission. So yes, so we have made some progress on the SOLT grant application that the Commission has given direction for LAFCO staff to take the lead on. And in doing so, we found that our core team did include some additional city members. The direction was to go back and add some more city representation to the team. So we were able to do that, and we did get some more city staffers to join our core team. But one of the areas that our team sort of lacked technical experience on was grant writing. And so we were fortunate enough to, through the core team representatives, find Ms. Kelsey Maloney to provide some assistance in that nature. And so she had the time and availability to join our team. And we felt that as lead for this, that LAFCO needed to bring forward a contract for her services to get us through the pre-proposal stage with the state. And that work initially could have started earlier, so we wanted you to ratify that time frame. So it was just before Thanksgiving weekend, although I'm not sure if Ms. Maloney has done any technical work for us at this point. But we would like to have the commission ratify that contract back to the date specified in the contract. And largely it's because the state Department of Conservation did hold a workshop just 2 days ago, kind of explaining the outline and what their expectations were for the pre-proposal and ultimately application bid. And so I was able to attend that and get some more information about that and what that timeline looks like. And so they are sticking with a pre-proposal requirement for this grant application to be submitted to the state before January 31st of 2025. And so the work that Kelsey Maloney would be doing is to help us prepare for that submittal. And again, that is an amount not to exceed $2,700 with a number of check-ins along the way as she's getting closer to that to make sure that we're staying close to that budget. So the recommendation is that the commission authorize and approve that for the chair's signature with that contract with Ms. Kelsey Maloney.
Okay. Questions or comments from the commission? Senator Guyer.
Contract's already been let, and you're asking for ratification of it?
No, we ultimately did not execute that. We wanted the commission to authorize it first, but we want you to ratify it back to November 28th.
Okay.
Or 27th, sorry.
Any other comments maybe in Santa Barbara? Moving on to public comment.
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Moving back to the commission.
I'll move for approval with the time change.
I'll second.
Motion by Guyer, second by Osborne. Moving on to a roll call vote.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Kiriakou,
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Osborne,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark, Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Chair Freeman.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, now moving on to next item of business is closed session. Madam Clerk, please read that item into the record.
Chair Freeman and members of the commission, our closed session we are agendized today for is for public employee performance review under Government Code Section 54957B1, title LAFCO Executive Officer Mike Prater.
Okay. I don't. My script. I adjourn this meeting to closed session. That's what this. That's what this. Okay. I'm perfectly okay with that. Okay, 5-minute break.
There's no one in Santa Maria.
Okay, we are now reconvened from closed session. Will council please report out from closed session?
Chair Freeman, there is no report out from closed session.
Great. Next item is commissioner announcements. Do we have any commissioner announcements or any requests for future agenda items?
I'd like to say something about, we're going to lose Janelle, you know, and want to thank her for her service and all that kind of thing.
I was just going to say that I've enjoyed my time on LAFCO, and I appreciate the investment that we're making in improving the work we do and taking the politics out of it as you move forward. I think will make a healthier organization and healthier community. So I appreciate that work.
Well, I'm very glad to have had you here, particularly when we've had discussions involving Lompoc. Having someone who can actually speak strongly for those issues on the commission was really useful. So thank you. Any other commentary people would like to have? Okay, moving on to executive officer comments.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So on that note, traditionally we like to honor our outgoing commissioners, and so if Janelle will honor us, I'll probably try to target maybe our February, so we're back here in Santa Maria, so you're a little bit closer. Yeah, okay, so yeah, we also have Doss Williams as well, so we'll do an honoree and give the commission an opportunity to say our thank yous for the work and time served that you put on this commission, so thank you for all of that. Outside of that, just wish everybody a Happy New Year and a Merry Christmas, and we'll see everybody in the new year, I guess.
All right, thank you. We are now adjourned to Thursday, January 9, 2025 at 1 p.m. in Santa Barbara.